So thank you so much to everyone who joined the Ocean group. I do feel that there was a lot of really, really interesting topics that people could split up and go to, and also some people just wanted some fresh air. So I think this is probably a topic that is of interest to more than like the 7 of us who discussed it. But as Laura said, we are in the UN Ocean Decade, which is from 2020 to 2030. There is a huge opportunity for us to connect with our local areas, to national networks, to projects like EU for Ocean, which has just started its second cycle and involves working with organisations, involves working with Youth for Ocean and the EU Blue Schools. And please, please, please remember, this is for everybody. It isn't just for aquariums, and it's not just for coastal or island community. We had a couple of actions that we're going to take. The group discussed a wonderful range of resources and project ideas and websites. We're going to put a document together, and well, I'm going to put a document together and put it on the conference app so everyone can access that. And we came up with a slogan. We came up with one thing we'd like people to think of, which is the sea starts here. There is just one big ocean that connects us all, and really your life depends on it because half our oxygen is coming from it. So please just remember, even if you're in a landlocked country, even if you're not near the sea, rivers flow into the sea, catchments flow into the sea. It's all connected through the water cycle. It involves us all. If you're talking about connected to nature, you are connected to the oceans. So just don't forget the water side of it as well as the land. And thanks again to all the wonderful ideas that the group provided. I'll pass on to Sean. It was you that was beside me, wasn't it? Because you were actually before me,
Hello. So, I'll come and stand up here with my dick. Thank you to everyone. We had a very small but perfectly formed group that came to talk about, which has nothing to do with the dick, by the way, that came to talk about virtual and what it looks like in the future. We had really good discussions about what people had tried. So we had a mixture of people that had both tried to do virtual stuff and people that had never done it before, which was really nice because it brought different voices into the room. It meant that we could chat about different platforms, so looking at things like Teams and Zoom, which work quite nicely, but then what other platforms are available, what else can be used. We talked about how sessions had been formed, and actually it was a lot of, in particular in Chester's case, it was activities that we'd done already. We just shifted our medium of delivery. So rather than delivering workshops and delivering sessions in person, we started doing it on Zoom, we started doing it online. And actually what were the challenges we had to adapt to as a result. And then we started talking about what the future might look like as well. So some people that hadn't done virtual before, actually it's from that starting point of taking what you've got already and how do you get that online and how do you communicate to a wider audience. But also, particularly with the pandemic, there was a lot of appetite and there was a lot of demand for stuff virtually when people couldn't come to a zoo or an aquarium. But now people can start visiting places again. What do we need to do differently? And we talked about big international events, so things like World Animal Days. World Penguin Day was mentioned, Snow Leopard Day. There is about 3 different international animal days, one for World Animal Day, International Animal Day, World Wildlife Day, International Wildlife Day. You name it, there's a different animal day for every day of the week. And can we share our expertise, knowledge, conservation projects from our collections, but do it at an EAZA level? So it might be coordinated centrally by EAZA or by an individual zoo and aquarium, but let's pop into Sweden, let's pop into Germany, let's pop into the UK, into Ireland, even internationally, popping into different zoos and aquariums, meeting some keepers, different languages all across the world, demonstrating the impact that zoos and aquariums can have, the expertise and talent of our amazing staff, but also showcase our amazing animals and what people can do to help look after and protect them. So it was a really interesting discussion. Thank you very much to those of you that came along. If you are interested and would like to chat about it more, please do. A little bit of a personal thank you because I've got a day on Monday where I'm talking about all of this stuff, so I've got loads of fresh ideas that I can claim as my own. So thank you very much for that. But otherwise, yeah, thank you for your time. You missed out, those who didn't come.
Thanks, Sean. I think we're all really looking forward to International World Dick Dick Day next year. Can't wait to see what comes out from that. So I was with the group that were talking about education support for our field partners. So thank you to those who came to participate. We talked about lots of things, had a really interesting discussion, lots of open conversation. We talked about how can our collections best support field partners and how many are either moving to or looking to move to more direct support rather than just funding. So what does that look like for the different collections? Talking about how it's really important to focus on what your collection is really good at. So that's the skill that you can give to your field partner. Potentially how we can get better awareness of what each other are really good at. So if our field partner says that they want support with something, we can actually say, that sounds great, that sounds like your need, but actually I can direct you to someone else who can provide that for you better. And how actually support for field partners might be something that feels easy to us. This won't necessarily be for all collections, so I don't want to generalize, but for example, providing access to a graphic designer so they can actually make their stuff look good. We talked about, is it not true that every single conservation project, field project should have an education element to it because they're all addressing issues which the very vast majority of are human related issues, so there will be some involvement of humans in the activities, so therefore opportunities to educate, but obviously that comes down to capacity, so really prioritizing those field partners who have got a focus on education in some way, but also working with our field partners to help them to realise the diverse audiences that they could be reaching. So it's not necessarily a schools programme, it might be actually trying to influence their government and to make changes at that level instead, depending on what issue it is that they're trying to come across. We also talked about how to better communicate our field stories in our spaces in the zoo, so making sure that we are telling those stories. It can be really good potential for diversifying the face of conservationists if you're actually showing off your field partners and the work you're doing in your interpretation. And anecdotally, how some stories don't get good interaction online, but they do great in person, so some of the more native species stuff that was true for. We talked about the challenges of field travel with the controversy of, you know, do you want to have all those flights taking you to places, but how it can sometimes allow you to really understand the partner and how you can best help them. So really to put a plan in place and really to build a cemented relationship which you can move forwards with. We also talked about one thing that can really benefit ourselves and field partners, and we've talked about it a lot, it's key for my presentation, is networking and collaboration. So linking up field partners, particularly if they're in the same region or addressing the same issue or have the same sort of initiative in place so that they can learn from each other. And we also realised around the table that there was field partners that Chester Zoo supported, that there was 3 instances around the table of 9 people where we were both supporting the same field partner and we weren't talking to each other about it. So we need to be aware when we've got more than one collection supporting a field partner and work together on making sure we're both bringing different things to the table. And we thought potentially if everyone's putting good information into it, the EAZA map, which is the conservation database, could be a really useful tool for that. You could say, okay, let me look at the country I'm working in. Okay, I'm going to contact that collection and that collection so that our field projects can talk to each other. Or you could look by saying, okay, let me find out who's also funding the partners that I'm working with. We also talked about how important it is to, within our organisations, try to break down the barriers, perceived barriers, real barriers, depending on your collection, between conservation and education. Your whole organisation is conservation and education focused. So it's making it not separate silos of work, but integrated work, which some are moving towards that, some that might be, just aspirational at the moment. And funding ideas to try and get some field educators to relevant conferences and networking events to actually share their stories in settings like this. But obviously there's lots of challenges with that: capacity, time zones, internet connections, and the investment that it needs. So it's a work in progress, but it was a really good discussion. Shall I bring it? Yeah.
One out, one in. Yeah. To the team from EAZA, this is a good moment to take a picture for our marketing department. So, yeah, sorry. So we were discussing fitting proper evaluation into just 90 minutes with a school group. And as impossible as it sounds, we did have some specific examples. So to start off, we really need to consider evaluation just a normal part of every program, so we don't feel that why do I have to do it? Why do I have to make room for it inside my program? No, this is just a regular part of your program. So if the program lasts 90 minutes, so say 10 minutes at the start, 10 minutes at the end, this is what you give to this specific thing. Then you have to decide what are you measuring exactly, because you can measure emotion or attitudes, and you can also measure knowledge gained or lost. If it's bad knowledge, then you can lose it, right? And then whether you want to base your evaluation on students or teachers, depending on why you need to do it. But then to share some specific examples with you, and as Noreen, I will also try to make a text of it and share it on the app. Yeah, so some quick things that you can do. For example, if you are doing a program on pet ownership, and you want to talk to children about which animals are, so to say, good to keep at home and which are not so good, then you can have, for example, say several jars. Each jar has a picture and name of an animal. So you, say you would have like a dog, a cat, and then a meerkat, and I don't know, like a lion, whatever. And each child gets, for example, one marble. And the question is, which animal would you like to have at home? So they choose at the start of the program, and then you do the same thing at the end of the program. And you can't match a marble to a specific child, but you can count whether the choices and attitudes have changed. Then, for example, if you're doing a program on, so to say, scary or disgusting animals, then you can use emoticons to gauge the emotion that children feel. So, like, choose the emoticon that represents your feeling towards this species at the start and at the end, and did it change? Then you can also do sociometrics. If everybody knows, yes, no. So you basically ask a question, and if children think one way, they go to the right. If they think another way, they go to the left. Or you can have more options. But if you do sociometrics, then it's you can also use it to evaluate knowledge. If the question is like, I don't know, is it hot or cold in the tropical forest? But then, because we are measuring knowledge in this way, it can be embarrassing for a child to show that they don't know or to answer incorrectly in front of everyone. So be very conscious of it, and maybe use a different method to evaluate knowledge specifically. Especially if it's your like one time with the group and you can't really build this very safe environment where it's okay to make mistakes. And another cool thing is like we had several methods for it, but basically you have to it's like three things that you're taking data on. First is what do kids already know, and they can just write down everything they know about a specific topic. And this is what you do at the start of the program. Doesn't have to be super scientific. They can just write down that it is very hot in the rainforest, and that's completely okay. But also they can write down what would they like to know about the rainforest, and that's what you do at the beginning of the session. And at the end, you take some time for them to write down or say out loud or draw, whatever, what have they learned. Yeah, and also if you offer them like a problem-solving exercise, you can try it at the start as well, but either way you can do it at the end, and if they actually solve the problem, then it shows that they have like understood the lesson. And I will try to like format it and find a graphic designer you will provide. Yes, and thank you. We actually had like a super group, very small, but in just 1 hour we have completely solved the problem. So you're welcome.
I'm conscious I'm now becoming the problem with timing, but we still have a couple of people to hear from. So if I can ask you to give a super speedy 2-minute summary, Leonora.
It's very simple because I didn't write anything down. But what we did was also just play. So there wasn't a discussion in my group. We all went outside and we played together. So boo-hoo for you for not joining in. I think our main sort of what we agreed on is that play can be helpful in so many ways. It can be helpful to break down the barriers with children that are meeting you for the first time. It can help break down the barriers on very difficult topics. And what's something that's hard to understand, if you play it, if you use your body, there's more room for remembering. So I think that's what we all agreed on, and then we had a good laughs together, and I think we provided the visitors of the zoo with a little bit of a show as well. But we what we do wish though, and I'm now looking at Laura a little because she's the EAZA liaison, is that the whole way we've been using the app on this conference, sharing things with each other, is there any possibility to create a forum where we could share like a video of a game we play at our zoo? Maybe it's applicable easy in other institutions. Sort of a forum where we can share on a day-to-day basis is very much wished from the people joining my group. And thank you so much for coming out and play, engaging and being silly. It was wonderful.
Thank you. That's a maybe on the forum. We'll see.
And I tried to make it quick, so we discussed how to reach our daily visitors at its best, and we identified 3 points. So what is the problem to reach the daily visitor? What's best practice to overcome the problem? And do we actually know if we reach the daily visitor? And we needed to narrow it a bit down to passive information like signage or exhibitions. And to make it short, our main problem are the kids, because they prevent the parents to read our nice information, Then secondly, no, yeah. Secondly, the attention span is extremely short. So I read that on TikTok, it's about 2 seconds. And if you are interested in something, it's 15 seconds. So imagine reading that, it's 2 seconds, that's enough. And then quite often we have to take whatever there is to put our signage. So we have no choice. And that might not be optimal now and then. And also, of course, it's sometimes difficult to get the topic into people's life. So it's completely off topic for a lot of people. So how to overcome with that? Well, the kid thing, don't allow kids. No, of course not. Involve the kids, get them to the point that they ask questions to the parents, because then the parents start to think. Just one hint, there are many more. Then for the information, reduce. We speak too much, we write too much. Most of us are scientists, we know too much. But we need to bring it down. No, seriously. It's one sentence they will remember. And a human brain on such a day is capable of taking home 3 messages. 3. So think about what we try to give to those people that visit daily. Completely off. So we need to reduce. And the last one, we need to be a bit stronger and force our visitors that they need to read certain things. And that's also made by having specific constructions. So you cannot go out of a zoo without going through an exhibition, for instance. But for that you need to be early in the projects and being able to influence a new building and a new project. And there we need to be stronger with our colleagues from all the other departments in a zoo and say, hey, you need to listen to us before you have it built for everybody. And the last one, do we actually know how many visitors we reach or how many visitors read our information sign? No, we don't. Not really. And there maybe a little idea to the EAZA evaluation group. I think that exists. It would be nice to have like 3 or 4 standardized questions that we could have for everybody of us. And if everybody uses the same questions, that's a nice database. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I didn't miss anybody out, did I? No. Okay. In that case, big hand again for all of our discussion leaders for being brave. And here's Laureen to lead the next session.
Thanks, Laura. So delighted to be able to chair, I think, probably what is the last of like the speakers for this event. A big thank you to everyone that stayed to listen and to the presenters. It's not an easy slot to have at the very end. Our first speaker is Catherine Rapp. She is here from Basel Zoo in Switzerland. This session is called Engaging with Conservation. Catherine is going to speak about her project Small Gestures with Big Impact. So thank you, Catherine. We should also be able to get a little bit back on time with this session because we actually will have 3 speakers instead of 4. But don't worry if it takes a little bit longer, Marquesa. Excellent. Catherine, I'll pass over to you.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to present you a tool that Zoo Basel introduced in 2016, the so-called voluntary conservation contribution, which is 1 Swiss franc per ticket. As at the moment Swiss franc equals the euro, I will talk of euros, which might be easier for you from now on. You already heard some things about the Zoo Basel this morning from my colleague Nina. Some more facts that might be relevant for this presentation. We have 1.2 million visitors last year. We sell about 30,000 season tickets. We are a private non-profit organization and the missions are probably the same than at your zoo. we do have a long tradition of supporting in situ projects. Up to 2015, we fed our conservation fund by 50 cents from each ticket and by 1.50 euros from each season ticket. This was just included in the price, so people had no choice. We did quite a lot of communication about it, but there was little awareness about this contribution. So in 2015, we came up with a new idea within Basel Zoo. And this was that from then on, we decided that we would give the visitor the choice to add €1 from each ticket in addition to the entrance fee on a voluntary basis. So it was not included anymore, it was additional and people could choose. Perhaps a remark, we did not introduce this for our season tickets. There it's still the same as before, that just €1.50 goes into this fund, conservation fund. The goals of this measure were the following. We wanted really to increase funds for in situ projects. We also want to raise awareness of the fact that conservation is part of our mission. And perhaps most important, we want to turn our visitors into participants in nature conservation. The idea was inspired by behavioral sciences. We already heard that, I think it was on Tuesday. Some thoughts about that. It is known that, or it is the fact that also small changes can make a big difference in results. And the second important thing is that if people feel that they own their commitment, that it's their own decision, then they it is really their commitment, they go into it and they are persuaded that it's the right decision. I put literature on the slide. The second concept which stands behind our idea is the concept of nudging. It's a concept that's promoted by Richard Thaler, a Nobel Prize winner. And nudging means that you kind of improve the environment in which people choose, and you help them to make a wiser choice, but without forcing them, without using any pressure. So you kind of try subtly to move people in the right direction. Nudging is also controversial. Some people think it's also kind of manipulating people. So Thaler, he formulated 3 ethical principles. One is the nudges need to be transparent. Second is it should be as easy as possible to choose pro or contra. And third, the encouraged behavior supports the welfare of the society. So we think that this voluntary contribution complies with these principles. It's a choice, it's not manipulation. So the aim was really to make the choice for conservation the easy choice. There was one important question left before we introduced this concept. Should this contribution be added by default, or should visitors be asked each time, do you want to pay the contribution or do you not want to pay the contribution? And you can compare it with a system of organ donations in different countries. There exist 2 different systems. For example, in Switzerland, you have to give your active consent while you are still living that you would donate your organs. Austria, or I think also Spain, for example, they have the system that you have to say, no, I don't want it. It's a so-called opt-out solution. And experiences show that the percentage of potential donors is much higher with the opt-out solution than with the active consent solution, which kind of makes sense. So we decided to set this additional conservation contribution by default. We implemented it in 2016 when we increased our entrance prices anyway because we opened a new enclosure. You see here the prices so that you get an idea of how high our admissions are. For adults, for example, is 21 euros. So the asterisk indicates also for people, it said really admission prices include a nature conservation contribution of 1 Swiss franc or 1 euro. If you do not wish to pay this contribution, please inform the cashier and you will be able to purchase cheaper admission ticket. So when we implemented this, we were very unsure how would people react. And we also were concerned that it's too complicated for the cashiers, because if they have to explain this concept to every customer, that it would have huge files. So we hired a group of students, trained them, and for the first few weeks, it was summer vacation with lots of people, they explained the concept at the entrance before people would go to the cashier, so everybody knew already what was the fact. Plus, we put posters by the enclosures where we explained what is being done with this nature contribution. It turned out that from the beginning, the acceptance was very high. And you're probably interested in numbers. So here are the numbers for 2022, last year. At the entrance, 96% of all the visitors paid this voluntary contribution. More interesting is also online tickets, because there you don't have a cashier, you don't have to say, no, I don't want to pay it. You're at home, you buy your online ticket, you really have free choice. And there it's also a really high number of 74% of people who pay this 1 euro in addition to the admission. Then the last number, which is the smallest, the 19%, that's tickets who are paid by invoice. That's groups. And there it is much lower, but it's also 19%. And my explanation is that if you organize a trip for a group, you don't really want to decide for other people that they have to pay more, or you're on a tight budget. So here we also have a lot of schools with tight budget, so it's lower. And you can see on the right side what it looks like in the internet, where you really have to choose which ticket you want to buy. So the result, we can make substantial contribution to conservation. We could more than double the funds we have. Last year we supported a total of 13 projects with a total of 260,000 euros. 260,000 euros. So total expenditures since introduction are 1.6 million euros. Some words about our in situ projects. We decided that we really focus on in situ projects where we have the species at our zoo, because it just makes it much easier to relate for visitors than via animals to the in situ projects. We also want to limit the number of supported projects. Our goal is around 10, so we're a little bit higher now. So we really want to focus, but then support on a long-term basis, so that we can reach more. We also have very defined criteria which we use to select in situ projects. And of course also reporting is important. We have to make sure that the projects are run in the right way, that we use the money that we got from the visitors that they are used in a responsible way and reach the goals. And of course this also means that we are in exchange of the people who are in charge of the in situ projects. Talking of how we are organized, we have supported those in situ projects for many years, I told in the beginning, and up to 2021 a curator was responsible for the in situ projects. Yes, and So when she left in 21, I thought that's the moment. It's a good, and I proposed to the director that the education department could take on this task. So now we're not Department Education, but Department Education and Conservation. And I had the chance that Nina, which you heard this morning, she could increase her job percentage by 20%. So that's what we have to do this task. And it turned out there are very good synergies between education and conservation. Of course, Nina works very close with the curators and the communication department. So make it visible and talk about it. We use all the platforms we have within the zoo and outside the zoo. So outside the zoo is really the task of the communication department, but of course they get the information from us. And I'm very convinced that you really have to integrate those conservation topics in easily accessible topics. So you start by the animal and then you kind of add and integrate the information. So to make it even more easier, we developed the so-called button, and implementation is in progress. So we wanted really to give appreciation to the visitor, just to say thank you. We also wanted to make it easy to identify all the information about in situ projects, and this button is adaptable for different applications. So few examples: at the entrance you get this information about the voluntary contribution, you get the zoo map, and then on the zoo map you find this button and you find all the information about the concept. We can also use this button in exhibitions. We had it before, then it was yellow, that was like the first version. Now we turned it to a green button and we use it more widely. So for example, here on the left you can see an exhibition about the ocean, and it's just one panel on the in situ project with this yellow button. And we just started to use it on signs in February. So it's a sticker with this green button, and it also contains a QR code where you can scan this and then you get more information. And there the idea is really that we have an in situ project about Somali wild ass. So on the sign about Somali wild ass you can find information. Okay, that's thank you, you paid some money for this project. We also use World Animal Days and other events to include and promote this idea and to include information about in situ projects. We have a website with an interactive map, so all the green dots are projects that are ongoing. We also leave the grey ones that are the completed projects, and then you can get more information. Media relations, Zoo Magazine, social media we use as platform. So in short, my summary, we have a very high acceptance of this voluntary contribution by visitors. We generated lots of money, which we can give to in situ projects. I think it's an excellent tool to turn our visitors into participants in nature conservation. It really also strengthens the awareness of the zoo's contribution. And what is really very nice, that very quickly other zoos adopted this idea. So you are welcome to join. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Catherine. That was really, really interesting talk. I have to admit the little green button idea for the thank you. I might be robbing that for Ireland. Very interesting. Our next talk is Mario Priya. She is from Korkazari Zoo in Helsinki. Sorry, that's my alarm on my phone going off. So Catherine, you were ahead of time. And Mario is going to talk to us about her project, Conservation Heroes. Yeah, sorry, Laura. I lost the thing with the times on it, so I made up my own one. Mario, I'll pass across to you.
Which one do I press?
Oh, for on.
How to move this one?
Let's see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
Okay, so I come from Korkeasaari Zoo, which is located in Helsinki, Finland, and next September we are having the EAZA annual conference there, so hopefully I will see some of you there. It's the annual conference, but there will be, I hope, a plenary of communications and of course open sessions of education. So if anyone has the chance, so welcome. But okay, now to my presentation. It's about conservation heroes. It's a project which has a kind of strange outcome. Now that I've been here for a week, I've learned so much that I think this probably would not have been developed in case. Some background information. So as we all know, university researchers do study in our zoo grounds, whether we want it or not. And there was this study, I think it was 2017 or so, because this publication, peer-reviewed scientific publication, has come out 2018. And in the publication, which was done in Helsinki Zoo by interviewing several people and asking them what they have learned about conservation, what kind of advice, how to contribute yourself they have found, and the result was that not much more than maybe how to donate money. And the interviews concentrated on signage, on exhibitions, because we do a lot of communication on conservation and action during our animal talks, guided tours and events, but that was not what they paid attention. It was about how people could find information on our zoo grounds. So, our directors reacted and said, we need something. There has to be some signage and more information for our visitors. And this resulted in a hell of a long planning process. It lasted, I think, half a year. And it was done in collaboration with first the whole zoo staff and an external service design consultant. Service design in short means improving visitor experience. And we wanted, or the ones that started the project wanted, an out-of-the-box view, because you know very often when we zoo people start to plan something, we have the ideas so deep in our minds that we're not very volunteer to take new ways, because we know what works and what doesn't. But in this process we wanted someone else to think about how visitors catch the information and how they are hooked, if you understand what hooked means. And this is the outcome. So this is not a Zoomarine style, one message, one sign. So if there's anyone from Zoomarine, do close your eyes. This is rather kind of Maurice Moore style. And so now, after those years, so that was before Corona when we did this process, so actually we were ahead of time, because this is just one of the panels along this trail. One panel includes all the frameworks and strategies and standards that you can imagine, so quite a lot. But now, as we are talking about conservation heroes, the out-of-the-box view was that because this is a trail, consisting of 11 panels. We show how our zoo staff, everyone is a conservation hero. All the gardenists, zookeepers, ticket sailors, educators of course as well, we are all doing work for conservation. So we were trying to kind of build a conservation culture of our zoo. And then to involve people, we have a special section how they also can feel that they are conservation heroes when leaving the zoo. We did have key messages, and we wanted to highlight that we as zoo workers, we think that animals should thrive in their natural habitats. So that's the starting point. But as they are in our care, our duty is to ensure the well-being of them. And as I said, whole staff is involved in conservation work together with you, as EAZA strategy defines. But if you still remember the first picture of the panel, you will see more. There needed to be this hook, the attraction, the lure. Why would people go to look 11 different panels with, you know, many words and a lot of information? And what would that hook be? It would be to test your own conservation type. So your own unique style to take part in conservation, and then get to know that which animal does your style resemble. And as far as I know, people are interested and willing to test themselves. We want to know our temperament type or our enneagram type, and that's the kind of thing we thought that maybe people would want to find out what's best for them. And how to test. So in each panel there are several questions. These are just 2 examples just for you to know that there were 3 options for each answer, and every option is correct. So there is no right answer. You just choose which suits you best. So then you kind of collect A, B, C answers. And so another panel. And there you see the kind of testing. How do you get the light? Well, anyway, the kind of a purple section with the question mark is where the testing happens. And that is also the part how to involve kids. It's low enough. There are the stamps. So it can be their duty to do the stamping. Well, as we all learn along the also testing of the whole trail, in the first place the stamps were detached to a long wire, which ended up in kids stamping all the panels. So after cleaning them for a week, we thought, doesn't really work. It's very participatory and interactive, but this was not the meaning. And as you see, there is also a lot of white color. So we changed you can now stamp it by using this kind of a booklet. It's a round shape. It's easy to put under stamp, and the stamps don't move. They are there. And when you choose your answer or your option, you get 1 type of footprints, and then also, well, in this on the other cover you see the map, how the trail goes, so it's easy to find the panels. There are hints where to find the other one, the next one, but you won't get lost because there's a map. So you're collecting those stamps, and at the end of the trail, da-da, you're going to find out your kind of type to do conservation. There are 3 different animals. I will tell you soon which they are. And so there's the solution. And then you can see now it's the purple one with mongoose. So you pull out the kind of animal that is representing your style, and then you can go behind that panel and take a picture of you. So this is the kind of like take-home message, because you won't remember what your type was and how it advises you to carry on conservation. So it gives you kind of a very, how would I say, concrete ideas how to take part in conservation. And so here we are. You can be a conservation hero, a bit like, I don't know how English-speaking people say this, know-it-all, kind of not besserwisser, but know-it-all. So like a fast-learning white-faced saki. So that's one type. Or then a practical guy, a practitionist, like a blue-throated macaw with a clever use of its beak. Or you can be a caretaker, helper, like a mongoose, and looking after the welfare of its flock. So these are the options. And I don't know if you can still follow. So you can kind of connect to these animals, or you can connect to those people in the panels, the zoo stuff, because it's also mentioned somewhere, I can't remember where, but that which type is each member of staff representing. So we kind of course, tested ourselves as well. And of course, each panel is close to a certain animal, and in the panel you are telling how this animal is part of some conservation projects, or how we kind of take care of its welfare, or how we train it. So of course there's a lot of animal information, but then also how this person of the staff is doing conservation, him or herself, also outside the zoo. And now as an example, the caretaker. So the caretaker wants the world to be a better place for animals and people. And caretakers are good listeners and conversationalists. Not conservationalists, but conversationalists. And there are different ways of helping animals, which might include, so reduce animal products in your diet and share vegan recipes with your friends. You can join voluntary work for wild animals or pets. And you can, of course, study to become a doctor or a vet or a nurse to help animals or people. Or you can support projects that, for example, donate money, or you can support a good animal. So those are examples of caretakers, and those were written in Finnish in the panel. You could pull off the last info at the end. Okay, and yeah, the other 2 ones were different. Like it was very many actions that have been mentioned here several times, like increasing biodiversity in your own backyard, etc. And then to assessment. So we didn't do any high quality evaluation, how we managed to meet the key messages and the targets, the several targets we had. I think we were so exhausted after getting those panels, and it's a compromise. You can imagine if there's half of the staff bringing in ideas and then the consultancy. I don't know if they even changed many times, but anyway, it was a long process. So the assessment was done by taking random families and groups of people or couples for interviews after they had gone through the trail. And now comes the good news. People did like it. They found it very kind of interesting, interactive. They liked the stories. But maybe this was because once you knew that you were being tested, of course you read them. And like Finnish people are serious people. If someone is testing us, we want to do the best. And so they read them carefully. And but now comes the bad news. They liked the animal stories, but they didn't really interest of the stories of the staff. And we were horrified. We had put so much energy on the photos that had been taken of us, and because we were a bit ashamed of seeing us, as of our proper size all over the zoo. So not that good. But anyway, then comes the part that we could kind of predict that people do like to test their own type. So it was interesting, it was fun, inspiring. Only very few people thought it was boring. And also, when they had found out their type, they thought it was well defined, it was identifiable, and they thought it was just like me. Yeah, this is the way I could go for conservation. So conclusion, I have 1 minute, yeah. Conclusion. People are enthusiastic of testing themselves. That works, so if you can copy any idea of this, do copy this one. Skip the others out. And information of zoo people was totally overshadowed by the stories of animals, which is maybe okay. And if you want to get people to go for this trail, you need a little bit encouragement. It works with people that want some kind of a common issue to do. Adult groups are good, school groups, not very small children can go for this, but for families, this doesn't really work. As I have said that, people, children want to go the direction after they have stamped 3 times, and adults don't have time to read. And also one thing is bad, that people, when they saw the panel, they don't know where's the starting point. I'd go for that, but how to do it? So we need more leaflets around the zoo, and then they are covered by snow or lost somewhere. And one more thing, what is also challenging if somebody of our staff leaves, so what to do with the panel, or also, some animals can be lost, so that then there is not this point anymore, we need a new one. But it's just practice, we can work out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mario. I didn't have the heart. I didn't have Christian's teddy, to be honest, and I really didn't want to throw something hard at you. And it was so interesting as well. It always feels awful being like, you have to stop when it's so interesting. I thought that was just fantastic, the trail, and the results were very interesting. It shows the importance of evaluation, I think. Our third and final speaker in this session is Marketa Grunova from the Safari Park of Drov Kalava. I know I've totally massacred that, so I'm so sorry, Marketa. Marketa will tell you who she is and where she's from.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you so much for introducing me. What a treat to be the last speaker. So I would like to share with you a bit of experience, bit of evaluation, and perhaps also to propose a pathway forward in approaching environmental education in our conservation programs. I would really be glad to sound confident, because I feel confident about what I'm telling, but I'm just very nervous. We as EAZA educators have an opportunity to participate on great projects, such as the biggest transports of Europe, of rhinos from Europe to Africa ever, which many of our zoos participated on. And in our case, it resulted in partnership with Akagera National Park, Rwanda. That partnership brought one education center equipped in 2019, and we have also tailor-made education programs for them, with education materials for 2,000 children coming to their facilities every year. Every minute now, the second education center in Rwanda should be finished by the entrance of the national park, and the first one was visited by Prince William, by the way. We have also been active in Senegal since 2015, where we have accompanied Derbianos Conservation NGO in Western Derby Eland Conservation Project. We have been running educational activities there, and I had an opportunity to evaluate them in series of data collection. The results and methodology of that evaluation is available in 2 published articles and not available in 1 article that has not been published yet. Because we knew that our first programs had an impact on knowledge, but we had no clue about attitudes or about the efficiency of our outdoor excursion, we started in 2015 with a new perspective and designed new programs with all the content that good education programs should have, including outdoor excursion that should be working well, and we all feel that it should be working well. But as Constance and Joao said, not every tools that we are using and we think should be working are working the way we think. For that reason, we designed the programs in 2 alternative ways. One included outdoor excursion, and one was in class with the same content. The result of that two-day education program was that we had positive impact on knowledge. We did have impact on attitudes. Sometimes it was in the way that we have not expected, but we don't have time to talk about it so much. What we were very surprised about is that the excursions had did not differ in results than the corresponding indoor program. Now, at that point, I looked around and I thought, we have knowledge, we have attitudes, but where is the change of the behavior, which is the ultimate goal of environmental education? And I thought, is there not someone who works in Global South and who have results in changing behaviors? And this is when I started to collaborate with my colleague from development agency, because he has extensive experience with behavioral change in all thinkable countries in Global South. And also we partnered with our colleagues in Senegal that we work on in Nyokolo-Koba National Park. We organized the workshop in the very heart of the Eland protection in Nyokolo-Koba National Park, the only habitat of that, natural habitat of that critically endangered species. In that workshop, we went through the series of exercises that are that have been proven to lead to behavioral change, which also meant to approach our approach to conservation education from the scratch, and it hurt, but it proved efficient also in strategic planning in other fields of that project. For example, when we defined our target groups and the problems that we face in achieving our goals in conservation, we found out that one of the two target groups that we have been working with is the very only one that is linked with no problems caused to the national park. When we had that, we prioritized the problems, which basically means weighting the weighting the severity of the problems versus the feasibility of approaching those problems. But those were only thoughts from the table, so we had to go to communities and to validate those thoughts with them. When we had it validated, we could formulate the problems message linked to that specific problem and also behavior that we want to change. When we had that, we had to face the barriers that were in the way to achieve that behavior that we have defined. And when we had the barriers, we could say, what are the barriers that we can solve with conservation education or social marketing, and what are the barriers that must be overtaken by other means? And when we had all that, we could start designing the activities, which I think is the waters that we can all swim in. But we often forget to involve the first steps that should precede designing activities. We have done the same. In one protected area in Chad, and written that methodology in recommendations of the outreach strategy for that protected area. So this is available. Again, thank you very much for making it up to now. And again, such a treat to be the last speaker.
Wow, I think that that was really inspirational, Margaret. I love the way you went about it, and I do agree. I mean, sometimes I love working with small children, but really, they generally don't have a lot of like conflict issues, or well, they do, but not, I suppose, ones that relate to conservation education. We do have time for a few questions if anybody has a question for any of our speakers. I think we had 3 really inspirational talks there. Yeah.
If you want it.
I have 2 questions from Mario, actually. Mario? Hello, here you are. Oh, take the microphone. First off, how did the staff feel about being on pictures like that? Did you have to really go on your knees and say, "Oh, please," or whether like did it really need a lot of talks and good sessions and a lot of beer? And on the other hand side, the second question, a very short one: how long will this exhibition be there? Is it planned for a year or 5 years or forever? That would be the.
Okay, the first question. Yeah, in the beginning it was a bit challenging to find suitable people, but once they saw the pictures, because it was a kind of professional photographer, some of them were like envious and felt bad that they didn't promise to be part of it in the beginning. And it gave us courage, because it has resulted, maybe not just this one, but nowadays in one of our most popular channel we have a own program of our zoo, and there's a next series coming. You know, this zoo series like in Australian zoos, but now Helsinki Zoo is really famous. So some of our zookeepers have been seen by tens of thousands of people. So it has, because Finnish people are shy and humble in the first place. But once they get to be big stars, they can't stop it. And the other question was, how long? Till the end of the world? I don't know. The weather is challenging. You can imagine we're covered by snow for 4 months, so maybe the trail is not that popular, but still the booklets are there under a shelter to be taken. But I don't know. I'd say it's a 5-year project.
Any other questions? Come on your ear now. You might as well ask them. You're not going to ask them when you go home, you know.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I had a question for Catherine Rapp about. There you are. Thank you. It was about the €1 donation that was included in the price, and you could take it away if you wanted, and the fact that the invoices that were mostly group payments, that was way lower than anything else. And I was just wondering, what was proposed that for. Was it that for every member of the group €1 was added, or was there a solution for €1 per group? I don't know how you calculated that percentage, so I was wondering about that.
Thank you. No, it was really that, like, if a group with 25 people books a guided tour, then we asked the client, should we add the voluntary contribution? And this would, if this person says yes, it would be 25 times this €1 plus.
Yeah. And did you think about then offering, if you thought that school groups are on lower budgets and would often say no because it was too expensive because it's €25 and it's way too much, did you think of offering them to put €1 per group, whether that would have given them a greater engagement, or?
No, we didn't do that, because you also have to make sure that it does not get too complex. I mean, already now it's a little bit more complex than it used to be before, and €1 per group, it's not worth the complexity.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you. Any other questions? I'm tempted to stop for a few seconds, because I remember a teacher telling me that when they ask a student a question, most students don't answer, put their hand up for 7 seconds. But as an educator, sometimes we feel we need to jump in faster than the 7 seconds. I thought it was a very interesting fact. Marketa, can I just take the last question? I was just wondering how, and maybe you presented it, and apologies if you did, if I missed it, how long did this project take that you were working with this huge range of stakeholders and identifying all these barriers to change?
So the workshop lasted 4 years, and then we had then we had 2 or 3 days hands-on data collection training, which will then continue in data collection.
I have to say it's really, really inspirational. I think to really create very significant change, it takes a huge amount of time and effort. So well done to you and your team. Thank you very much for staying for this session. I hope you enjoyed engaging with conservation. We are now going to have a break, and if we can ask you to be back here at 4 o'clock, please. So I think that gives you about half an hour. Thank you.
So we are starting with our sponsor. It's a Wrocław company, so we are very proud to have such a modern company in our city, and it's called Giant Laser. And they will tell you more about the VR and how it can be used in the education. So please.
Thank you. So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are very pleased that we have the opportunity to be among such a fantastic group of people who, like us, are not indifferent to climate change and want the best for our planet. I'm Aleksandra Szlacheta, and my friend is Paulina Sroka-Kopeć. We are from Giant Laser. So today we are honored to talk to you about the impact of VR and AR technologies in education, especially in rising climate awareness, because as we all know, the climate changes are the most important issue of our time. So it's essential to empower the next generation to take action. As a Giant Laser, we realized the benefits of VR and AR technologies. So thanks to these technologies, we have been helping to develop education, industries, healthcare and other businesses. Why? Because VR and AR can engage young and older in immersive and more interactive learning experience. So with our Giant Lasers education applications, students, workers and other users can, for example, explore fauna and flora worlds wherever they want, in work, classroom, shop, or even zoological gardens. But at the beginning, I would like to explain what is the difference between VR and AR. Virtual reality allows the users to explore completely digital world that can be seen through VR headsets like that. And the user also can interact with 3D objects through controllers, for example, and feel fully present in digital world. So in short, virtual reality creates completely separate world for its users, while augmented reality create digital informations that are overlay on our real world. So it uses cameras and sensors that track and see real world objects and then overlay them on mobile devices or smart glasses. So augmented reality creates expanded world, our real world, with additional 3D objects. And according to the studies, VR users had a 275% increase in confidence compared to the traditional training methods. And in addition, VR market will grow in nearly $73 billion worth by 2024. And also 82% of companies have been seen benefits to VR and AR technology implementation. So as you can see, VR and AR have a lot of potential. And also as Giant Laser, we established the foundation, the Climate Lab, our mission is to educate people about their impact on the planet and inspire them to make positive changes. One of our projects is Zrównoważeni podcast, which is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and also Google. There we provide our listeners with eco advice and discuss various topics like renewable energy, recycling, eco-friendly lifestyles, and also eco-business practices. We also organize eco-events and speeches. We collaborate with educational institutions to create workshops to educate people about environmental protection, because we think that by working together we can make a big positive impact on our planet. And our biggest success is extensive portfolio of educational applications about climate change in VR and AR technology. They engage our users and give them more interactive way, and they have proposed for institutions that want to help the planet. So you can join us in our mission to make planet a better place. But before that, I would like to tell you about our solutions about climate change and environmental protection. So first is Trash Rage. Trash Rage had a premiere at Audiovisual Technology Center, and it met with great interest. It's a virtual reality game that takes place on Mars in 2049, and then on post-apocalyptic Earth, where the player's mission is to collect trash like metal, plastic, paper, and after that sort them to correct bins. During the gameplay, we also have a task to complete. We must not catch the objects that slow down us. And thanks to immersive technologies, Trash Rage teaches about recycling in a fun and education way. So that's why VR Focus magazine placed our game in the top 10 educational VR games of 2019. And second is Planet Stories. Planet Stories had a premiere during International Water Day in Hydropolis, the interactive water museum. It's a mobile game in augmented reality that contain entertainment with educational values. By using a camera on our mobile devices, the users can see the ocean in front of them and collect the waste like plastic bottles, plastic bags, and straws floating around them. They are dangerous for animals, so our task is prevent the turtle before eating waste. During the game, we can learn about negative impact of pollution and bycatch on marine ecosystems. And we get to know how to help the ocean and its inhabitants like turtle. So we also have the hints about how change plastic for other more eco-friendly solutions. Planet Stories is available for free on App Store and Google Play, and we will show you Planet Stories after our speech in a classroom next to a conference room. And next, it's a movie about Planet Story. So you can watch it for a moment. Maybe from this moment. So as you can see, we used to experience Planet Stories our mobile devices, and through them we see augmented reality on our real world in front of our devices. And next one is Treasure Hunt AR. It's our new AR app concept for zoological gardens. It would promote rare and protected species, educate about them, and show why they are in danger. To use the app, visitors need to download it from posters at zoological gardens, and then we'll have a task to find the animals. The app will provide hints about where locate animals, and after that it will show animals on our mobile devices as 3D objects at the sidewalk. And after that we would read about species information, and after that have a task to complete to make animal free, such as removing a net from a bird's beak. And after that, visitors will have opportunity to take animal on a mobile device to home, to show them friends and watch what are they doing in free. In addition, visitors will receive extra notifications about new species in zoo and gifts while it will be Earth Day or Giant Panda Day. Hitbash is a virtual reality game that is focused on subject of global warming. It takes place on the world where planet is ruled by clown businessman who is generating a lot of carbon dioxide. The user is in a circus and need to use a hammer to plug pipes from which negative pollution is escaping. And during that, player must to fight with clown businessman who is trying to stop us. And it perfectly contains entertainment with educational. It shows harmful effects of fossil fuels and teach users about how to reduce our carbon footprint. And the last but not the least, Polish Forests VR. It's an immersive experience showcasing fauna and flora in Polish forests. Our 3D graphic designers have worked with the Forest Research Institute to create visually stunning environments like Bory Tucholskie, Karkonosze, Dąbrowy Krotoszyńskie, and others. Application is educational learning about species in forests in Poland, and it contains nearly 120 3D objects of plants and animals, allowing us interact with them and learn about them from boards, while completing 30 virtual tasks like picking raspberries or watching the deer from behind the bushes. It's perfect for eco-events and classrooms where students can interact with nature in interesting way. So now it's time for Paulina. Paulina is going to introduce you our two applications. And during that, I'm going to tell you what she sees from our application user perspective. So we need 1 minute to prepare. Okay, so it's 2049. The apocalypse took place. Robots destroyed humanity, and and only few human survivors fled to Mars. And now it's time to come back and clean up the Earth. In the game there are 4 options: tutorial, easy, medium, and hard. Paulina chose easy. So she's enter a futuristic VR world. And she's wearing a special exoskeleton that will help she clean Earth. Hi. In front of Paulina are helpful robots throwing trash at colored bubbles. Paulina catches the bubbles and sorts them to correct bins. Blue goes to blue bin, red bubbles comes to red bin, and so on. And at the bottom there is a panel that shows Paulina where the colorful garbage bins are located, and how much time is left, and how many Paulina scores points. She is also careful to not catch explosive mines, oil bulbs, and other objects that can slow her down. To get more options and points, we can throw garbage behind us to put it in the right bins and be faster. If we get really good, we can try in the brain blow mode, and we have to sort beans by recognizing them alone. There are also helper features like slow motion to improve our skills and get more points. Wow! Wow. We can also look for cool combos, like sorting to trash at the same time to score more points. As you can see, the game requires reflex and spatial awareness, so we really think in 360 degrees.
Hi. We're almost there.
And game is on. We also can write our name to see our score. Paulina is the best, really. Okay, so now it's time for our another application. It's a virtual forest. We need to come back to menu, where Paulina can choose a location. She decided to choose Karkonosze, Spruce Forest. It's a viewpoint. We approach the binoculars and bring our head closer to. At this point, Paulina sees a panorama. She can follow the mountain range with eyes to discover all the points. From left to right, we see Szklarka Waterfall, Great Helmet, Lapski Peak, Chrznicki Wetlands, Chrznica, and others. And now Paulina physically take a step or two backwards to get out of the binoculars and get to another board. Oh, and we approach the zigzag viper. It raises head and hisses when we approach a short distance. So we take a step to backward. And when we finish looking at the viper, we leave and go to the next arrow. Now Paulina can choose a bucket or basket or collector to picking blueberry. She choose basket. and she can catch the blueberries with the controller under index finger. Paulina is trying to do it as lightly as possible, so that the berries don't splash. Okay. When she's finished, she goes to the next arrow, and she sees in front of her hunting pulpit. And there is the option to grab the crossbeam with one controller and drag it down to pull yourself up. And now we are on the bottom of hunting pulpit. And here is task to spot the animal. So we look for the deer. And we can observe its behavior. And now Paulina is going down. And go to the next location. Here we can plant a tree. On the ground we have a shovel. And there's a little problem. But Paulina is still bravely trying. She grabbed a little plant. And yeah, there is a lot to do in the next location, where on the ground we see a potion. And Paulina is drinking it. The scene is reload. And now we are reduced to the size on a bumblebee. We stand on a flower and we can watch the bumblebee from its perspective. And also we can see a world through colors that sees bumblebee. There is more blue and purple colors than through our human eyes. And now Paulina is drinking a potion to increase herself to normal size. So that's it. Thank you for your attention. And I would like also to invite you in 15 minutes to classroom where we are going to show you our applications. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The ladies will be waiting in the classroom in case you want to talk with them or network. And I think that we are starting another session, so Laura will lead the session.
Yes, hang in there, everybody. This is the last formal session. So I think we need to take a couple of minutes just to switch back to the laptop. But please do stick with us. I know it's very exciting to go and play with virtual reality, but we really want to share the outputs of all the hard work that you put in the plenary workshops. All right, well, to start this session, we will be having an update on the EAZA 21 Plus campaign. We've talked quite a bit about various EAZA campaigns. So I would like to invite my colleague Alice Albertini to come and join us while we get up the presentation. So she is one of the several people in the executive office who has been working very hard on this campaign. And she will give you a short update.
Chłopaki, możecie włączyć już?
I think it's something like full reading mode. No, it should be one of the two. Maybe one of these. Does it mean like maybe it's that one? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Laura. Good afternoon. Can you hear me? Yeah. It's a great pleasure to be here. My name is Alice. I work for the EAZA Executive Office, and I'm based in Brussels. And I'm coordinating the EAZA 21 Plus campaign together with Tomasz. So today, I would like to provide you with updates on the campaign, but also with inspiring thoughts so that you can come back and bring new ideas to your zoo and understand how you can tailor this discussion to your needs and priorities. So the overall aim of the campaign, the EAZA 21 Plus campaign, is to increase our confidence, competence, and knowledge to work with brand new international agreements on biodiversity, and I've already seen some of you yawing, and be more effective in conservation. These are wonderful words that can make you yawn, but what does it mean concretely? So this is the recipe of EAZA 21 Plus, an internal campaign lasting for 2 years. And we also have campaign cookies, thanks to one of the EAZA members. So the key ingredient for ensuring the success of this campaign are a pre-campaign survey that was carried out before the launch of the campaign to really adjust the content of the campaign to your needs. So before the campaign started, we launched this survey, and the majority of respondents were educators. I hope that most of you fill in the survey. And one colleagues were asked what they feel they would need the most to maximize their impact in conservation, the top reply was building a culture of conservation in my zoo. So I hope that this presentation is helping you with this. More than 120 institutions have signed up for the campaign so far, and more than 500 members have joined our Facebook group. So if you have not registered yet, you can find more information on the website, or you can come and talk to me. And you can also join me tomorrow for the EAZA 21 Plus game. So far, we have published an EAZA 21 Plus guide in 3 languages. And the articles you can find regularly on Zoo Aquaria can be a source of inspiration for what you would like to do, what you can do to bring in new ideas, or just refresh the old ones and bring the discussion in your zoo. We are organizing workshops, in-person workshop, online workshop. For example, these are the ones online on a variety of topics, such as applying for funding, genetic diversity, how to bring holistic thinking in your conservation strategy, and so on. At the annual conference, there were some events dedicated to the campaign. We organized this event for you to be closer to the campaign, but also for us to adjust the campaign according to your needs. Again, this is a concept that will return in this presentation, but that's what the campaign is. We celebrated the World Wildlife Day, sharing a series of stories on partnerships, because partnerships are central to our work. So there are stories on EEPs, on project consortia, on previous EAZA campaigns. And during the World Wildlife Day, we launched the Zoo Science Library together with VPZ, an online database of articles from peer-reviewed journals to demonstrate the work of zoos and aquaria, and also promote knowledge transfer and scientific exchange. And what about you? Some of you have already given a strong contribution to the campaign. For example, Furvik Zoo, Serza Zoo, Royal Burgess Zoo, they've organized internal meetings, what we call the reflection groups. Frankfurt Zoo has helped us with the translation of the guide. Ludosa Bird Park has translated in Portuguese the EAZA vision of saving species together with you, organizing an exhibition on local biodiversity. Now, some updates from the policy world, and thanks to this slide, I'm sure that if you're yawing, it's not because of me or the topic. We all agree that nature is in crisis and that this crisis is dealing with us all. And the world has missed key biodiversity goal. In 2010, in Aichi, Japan, these so-called Aichi targets were set up, but after 10 years, we can say that none of these 20 targets have been met. But it's not the time to give up. And this decade must be the turning point where we can recognize the value of nature to secure a nature positive trend by 2030. At policy level, there are at least 2 big, brand new international agreements which targets to be achieved by 2030, and we share a common vision for 2050 of living in harmony with nature. What is important to remember is just that we have the EU Biodiversity Strategy and the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. They share this element. We don't need to enter details. But the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, or GBF for France, has a peculiarity. It has a call for us. It has an explicit call for zoos and aquariums. So the strategy has 4 overarching goals and 23 action-oriented targets. These targets are organized in 3 main areas and blah, blah, blah. This is boring, but what you should remember is that there is one very important target, target 4. Target 4 addresses the conservation of species to reduce extinction risk. It highlights that we need to maintain genetic diversity. We need to manage human-wildlife conflict in a sustainable way. And the most important part for us is that to conserve biodiversity, not only in situ, but also ex situ actors and strategies are needed. So don't take for granted these sentences, don't take for granted these words, because even on the wording, there has been a lot of discussion. And this is the result of a lot of lobbying. There is a lot of work of people like us that were meeting and discussing on what was needed to be there. And in addition to that, the GBF recognizes that for implementing these targets, the transformative, innovative, and transdisciplinary education is key. Keeping inclusivity and a whole-of-society approach. It means that you have to involve all the sectors of society, not just governments, but youth, women, local communities, indigenous people, private and financial sectors. So the GBF is more inclusive, more comprehensive. It has more measurable and achievable objectives than the Aichi biodiversity target. So it's an opportunity that we can't miss. But if you're wondering what this has to deal with you, you are already on the right path. Let's find out some ideas. At a big scale, at a global scale, at a networking scale, this discussion is strictly linked to the role of conservation education. In your conservation standards, there are already the Aichi targets. So after the Aichi targets, here we are with the GBF and with a more concrete framework. Do you think, for example, that conservation education and transformative education are on the same page? You don't need to reply now. You can have the discussion in your zoo. You can have this discussion tonight, tomorrow, whenever. But what does transformative education mean in the context of a day visit at the zoo, for example? How can you bring transformative education into the role of conservation education? These are topics for you to be discussed. At national and local scales, there are opportunities for you as well. For example, the member states have to prepare, submit and implement their national biodiversity strategies and action plans according to the EU biodiversity strategy and the GBF. So you can find out which institutions in your country are working on that. And you can provide your expertise, experience in conservation education, for example. And there is great attention on native biodiversity at EU level. So today I saw several presentations addressing this topic. So again, you can include these in your. Oh, sorry, 5 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I know that you're already managing your word in an inclusive way. The GBF has asked us to be more inclusive. So another suggestion is to think if you're already targeting all the local communities that are close to you, close to your project. For example, what about farmers? What about other communities you never targeted and you can involve? And what about the role of local authorities? Are they recognizing your work? Can you do something to be more acknowledged by them? And finally, at zoo scale, this is for you, one of the first steps can be discussing with your colleagues what your zoo priorities are for maximizing your impact in conservation. And that's why we encourage through the campaign to have these reflection groups, internal reflection groups, involving colleagues from different job roles. And the reflection groups could benefit from people with your skills, because you are educators, but sometimes the link with your colleagues is missing. So this is an opportunity. The take-home messages for this presentation are coming from your presentation, because there are a lot of precious key points from what I heard today. I'm sorry that yesterday I wasn't here, but for example, an important point of the campaign is joining the dots, and it was highlighted by Anna this morning. Create and reinforce connections. This was a message from class. And what I like is that he highlighted the connections also between parents and their children while reading a column at the zoo. Katia from Parco Natura Viva focus on the role of storytelling to veiculate your message. And I spoke about the role of local authorities, and I also like that the colleagues from Lithuania addressed the influence of authorities, even if they were meaning someone else like Santa Claus. And the importance of digitalization, virtual reality, these are all topics that you can bring to your zoo, and you can work to not to have more homework, but to be more effective in what you're already doing recently. So to conclude, I hope that this is not a conclusion. This is an opening rather than an end, an opening for you to moderate your internal discussion and just to be more efficient in what you are already doing, to leave a stronger mark in conservation education for the next years. I don't think there is time for questions. You can write to me. You can speak to me later. I'm here till tomorrow after lunch. Thank you.
We do actually have a couple of minutes for questions, so if anyone has any initial questions for Alice. It's a lot to come at you, talking about Kunming targets at the end of a 3-day conference, I'm aware. Yeah.
Hi. My question is that originally the campaign was supposed to end, was it like December 23? Yeah, this September. Right now, you're talking in a way that makes me think that the campaign will go on longer. So, no? Or I can give back. Yeah.
Well, the GBF was supposed to be agreed last year, but then some problems after COVID happened and blah, blah, blah. So it was agreed just at the end of 2022. There was a lot of work on it. In our previous campaign document, it was called Post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. Then it changed the name to Kunming Montreal GBF, so let's call it GBF. But the campaign will last till this September, because it's supposed to be for 2 years. And after the end of the campaign, we'll share some toolkit for you. So I'm continuously looking for feedback from you. Even if there are negative feedback, they are still useful for adjusting the campaign. And there are still members doing reflection groups. So if you're organizing this kind of meeting, please send me pictures, send me a few lines what you are doing, because it's helpful also for the others. Some people are coming to me and say, what can I do for the campaign? And you can start from this meeting, for example. If you have more ideas, if you want more ideas tomorrow morning, you can join our campaign game. It will be an exercise, a funny exercise, to wear some other shoes, and given the same problem, how your colleagues can solve it.
All right, so I'm not seeing any other hands. Okay, in that case, maybe I need Pavel's help one more time to help me get my presentation on the screen. If I start speaking too loud. Too slow. Flash drive is this one. Plenary workshop summary. Yeah. Switch microphones. All right. Well, sorry you have to listen to me for a little while longer, but we really wanted to have a presentation. Where did that go? Well, there will be a presentation, and I will insist on showing it because I've spent all day making it. So this is to summarize the outputs from the workshops that we've had. I can see it on the small screen. It's coming. Because I know that I've put a lot of work into making the presentation, but not as much as all of you have put the thought and the time and the effort into coming up with lots of ideas and solutions to some of the challenges that we're facing. Most of which right now are with PowerPoint. It doesn't want to go into presenter mode. It's a beautiful presentation. It's just too much for the tech to handle. It's been a long few days. I won't entertain you with karaoke while we wait. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that either. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Now what happens if I try and use the clicker again? Does it all go wrong? No, it doesn't. Perfect. So woohoo! So some of you probably got a chance to have a little look at this either on your phone screen, or maybe if you had a very efficient German facilitator you saw on a big screen. But this is kind of where we got to with a very rough clustering exercise from all of the outputs that you created to think about where are we going. So we asked you about what are we doing that we need to change. We asked you what are we doing that we need to continue. And we asked you what are we not doing right now but we need to start, so what's missing. And these are kind of the broad topics that came out. So where are we going? Well, for the brave few members of the Education Committee, on Tuesday night the answer was slightly crazy. This is us having a flamingo break partway through doing the clustering. So we gave you a brief summary of those, and I will revisit them. And then you very bravely tried to come up with some responses and challenges to think, how do we get to where we want to go? So what I've done with these is that you can see the pie charts, which may be familiar, is just to show you what proportion of those responses were contributed by each of the various groups. And then the small one is showing you whether it's blue, which is change this, whether it was orange, which is keep going, whether it was grey, which is we need to start doing this. And what I've done is taken some of your excellent ideas for how we get there, and the ones that are highlighted in green are the ones where I can immediately see a role for the Education Committee. And the little emojis are to give you an idea of how we feel about that. So when you see like a big grin, that's like, oh great, this is something that we're already on track with, we're working on it. Where you see something with just a smile, that's, oh yeah, we have that sort of in our minds, but maybe we are not quite prioritising it yet, or we haven't got to it in the strategy. Where you see a big thinky face, that's, okay, this is totally new for us. This was a new idea that you came up with, and we'll need some time to sort of think about how we deal with that. And where you see something in bold, that's something that came out of multiple groups. So you can see for networking, so collaboration on projects, sort of national and international, we have a few ideas on this, mostly around how we do collaborative evaluation, but definitely more we can work on there. Creating a partner database, so there was talk about field conservation partners earlier, also potentially just partners for other things like universities, etc. That's new for us. Give us a moment to think about it. More discussions, workshops, webinars, courses between conferences. Hopefully that is something that we can and will deliver for you. And the same thing with general guidance on evaluation. Then we move into resources. So again, promotion of volunteering and expertise sharing. We weren't necessarily thinking about volunteering, but we're very happy to provide forums for you to help share. Webpage about information sources that you can access through the EAZA website. Well, good news, we're redesigning our website and our member area, which will appear later. So fingers crossed, this is something we will give you a more functional update on within the next 2 or 3 months. And then we had some really nice ideas coming out about a mentorship program. So perhaps some of that might be working with our candidates for membership who are still quite new to meeting the EAZA standards. But there was also some nice suggestions that we could also potentially provide mentorship for people who are coming into the zoo education world, so wherever you might be. So perhaps that's also something we can look at. And again, that's a please give us some time to process. Then we move into the skills and training. So there's a lot of green on there. Yes. Well, evaluation. We know we are working on it. We have a fantastic evaluation group who've put together some really nice ideas that I will be realising for you by the end of the year. Behaviour change methodology training, something we've talked about, but we didn't know how much you wanted us to deliver it, so that moves up the list. Educational plans for educators. Well, we had one successful training. Maybe we can have more, and I feel more confident to say it's successful that I know 3 people who attended that have since published their plans, so hopefully that works. Free online courses and materials from conferences. Well, we'll definitely be sharing everything that we came up with today, and hopefully some of the materials that we're creating for you will be available for free for our members also. Exchange programs. That's a lot of work, but that's a really cool idea, so that goes on my list, and I mentioned it earlier, talking about what we might be able to do with Erasmus. Same thing for the zoo educators qualification, and external financing for conferences. I think Antonietta touched on it earlier in the week that the Education Committee can help a little bit with some of that. And potentially there's also some work that we can do to help push at a broader level as EAZA to put more pressure on management to make sure that you are getting proper CPD. It is one of the standards, so perhaps there's more we can do to make sure that that is being met. So there's quite a few smiley faces, but really this is my eternal face right now because a lot of that comes back onto me with my other hat on, working on professional development. Then we have the guidelines. Well, we've talked a lot about the new standards that we, pending council approval, will be publishing next month. So hopefully we can give that one a big tick. What we don't quite know is whether what we're preparing will be enough for you. So we will wait and see your response. So please, once those come out, if you need more, let us know what it is that you need and what we can do to support you in meeting those standards. Okay, now we get on to the big and small print, so hopefully it's at least slightly readable. So this one was communication. Big one that came out, sort of in this one, also in some of the other categories. We need to do more to celebrate our successes. So I think there's definitely something that we can do. Also probably a lot that we can do in our own collections or on a national level. And improve sharing of EAZA campaigns. Well, hopefully we're trying to do that with our conferences. We have just heard about 21 Plus. We have had some opportunities to talk about the new campaign, and we will see what we can do to push campaigns forward, especially the education elements. Conservation. So what do we have up here? Educators getting involved with tags and EEPs. I think we've talked about this one quite a lot as well. It is a project that's been on our list for quite a while, but it's quite a complex beast to achieve. So that's why it gets a small smiley face, because we still have quite a bit of work to do, but this is definitely quite a high priority for the committee at the moment. And nice one down here about actually valuing sustainability in zoo practices. So again, this is an area where the committee is doing some work specifically looking at education, and also there's a bit more work to come from EAZA as an association. I think that we've recently had sort of guidelines published on use of sustainable timber and palm oil and soy, if I'm remembering correctly. So it is something that is in progress, and we will eagerly work with our education community and our communicators to see how we can actually make those useful documents for you. Okay, we're getting towards the end. This one, there's a lot, but not too much that's green, of course. This was kind of one of the biggest chunks of that first chart, so not surprisingly, quite a few things that came up. So, interesting idea about maybe we need more campaigns about what is a modern zoo. I think perhaps Alice would agree with me that this sort of does overlap quite nicely with the concept of 21 Plus, but perhaps it's also something that can be brought more to our visitors and not just focused internally. Commitments to diversity with management and making that part of a screening. Again, love the idea. It'll take a bit of work to get there, but we'll definitely take that feedback on board. And also, I think this one, it says money, but I think this was about socioeconomic barriers to people joining the zoo, and perhaps there is an interesting piece of work now that we have hopefully quite some data from members who've had experience with free programs, whether that's for groups or whether that is for general visitors. So perhaps we can do some work to collate that data and see what comes out. And then, really long list. A lot of you spent a lot of time talking about this, which I think is really nice. A lot of introspection going on. So this was kind of perception and influence, when a lot of you spent a lot of time talking about what does it mean to be a zoo educator. What did I tick green? I might need to go look at the screen rather than craning my neck. Because I think, again, what came out was that there's also quite a lot of this that is something that begins at home. That we have some potential ideas for us that we can be more proactive with putting education forward at our various conferences, which I think is a really nice idea. And again, we see the idea of education involvement in the campaign coming forward more strongly. This is something that should already be in place, but clearly the feedback we're getting from you guys is that it's not quite working out the way it's intended. So we will need to have a little think about that one. And personally, it makes my heart sing to see that you want to talk more about EAZA during the visitor journey. So perhaps there's ways that we can make that easier for you to do. We like it when you talk about us and not just your own zoo brands. And what else do we have on there? Some, star ratings for screenings. I'm going to say that's probably not going to be popular with Membership and Ethics Committee, but we can certainly talk about that and maybe see if there's a way that we can incorporate the spirit of the idea in some way. And I think that covers most of the green stuff on there. But yes, we'll try and put the word forward more at conferences. Yes. Yeah, so we have requests for more visibility at annual conference and at Directors' Days, which we're doing a little bit. We'll try and do more. And then that's all the topics. But what comes next? So who's driving the bus? Just to give you some information, these are kind of the way that these groups and categories are how the Education Committee, the Conservation Education Committee, is currently categorising our tasks that we're working on. So we have 9 categories. We came up with one more than you. So you can see what the categories are and also who is responsible for those. Some of them are here in the room. So working on animal programmes, we have Steve. I won't ask him to stand up. Conservation is Mario, who you've heard from earlier today. Professional development is me. Communications is Barbara, who you've already seen during the conference. Conservation education standards, we have Antonietta, our committee chair. Sustainability and events sit with Tomislav, who has made himself very, very known during this conference, I think. Then networking with Antonietta, and research and evaluation with Georgina. So these are the people on the committee who are taking the lead on these tasks. But what I wanted to say is that, there we go, it's back, yes. What I wanted to say is that we welcome help. It takes a lot of hands to do the work. So if any of you feel like these are things that you really want to drive forward, these are the people that you can connect with to help us make that happen. And I just wanted to call back to a really nice comment that was in tiny, tiny print when it first came up. So a really important thing for us to note. So it starts with ourselves in our own zoo or aquarium. I think for our aquarium representatives, having had the pleasure of talking with some of you earlier, when we say zoo, please understand that we mean zoo or aquarium. If you read our documents, it will explicitly explain that this is how we use the word zoo. There is always a silent or aquarium, or almost always. So please, I hope that you find yourself included in that, and we can all start with ourselves. So does anyone have any questions on the feedback from the workshops so far? All right, well, thank you. So I'd like to just finish up by going back to, maybe I don't get to finish up, by going back to the principles of open space technology that we talked about. So the first one, whoever comes is the right people. So that's all of you in the room. That's who we have on the committee. That's you if you decide to put yourself forward and start participating in more work. Then we have, let me check I have the right wording. Whatever happens is the only thing that could have. So thank you to all of you for making this the only possible 2023 EAZA Education Conference. And I'd especially like to say thank you to our lovely hosts from Wrocław Zoo. Round of applause. I'd like to say a big thanks to my colleague Mirko Masaya, who's hiding at the back, but he's been making all of this possible for a long time. Thank you to our Conservation Education Committee, especially everybody who's been helping out with facilitation, session chairing, etc. We couldn't have made this event happen without you, so big hand for the committee. And a big thank you to everyone who has given a talk or led some other kind of activity in this workshop, so a big hand to you guys as well. So, next principle that we have, whenever it starts is the right time. So we might be coming to the end of our formal sessions, but I always like to remind myself, because I need reminding quite often, it's almost never the best time to start something. So if it's not the best time, just remember the second best time is now. So let's start the work now. And then the final one, when it's over, it's over. Or is it? Because we're not over yet. So I just wanted to remind those of you who are sticking around for tomorrow that we do have our informal sessions happening. So you can join myself and Alice if you want to see me be a zoo director. Come and play the EAZA game with us. We're starting at 9 in the restaurant. You can also join Marta and Lucia to talk about the upcoming EAZA campaign, which will be also at 9 here in this room. You can join with Lizzie and Becky, who will be available from 10 in the VIP room if you want to explore Zoodle and talk about use of technology. That's a drop-in session, so whenever you feel like joining in. If you are interested in talking about art with Antonietta, have a word with her and she will let you know where she wants to meet. I think it's going to be nice casual walking session, so she'll let you know. And then we have Daria, who will be starting at 11 in the classroom if you want to explore signage. Did I miss anybody out? No one's raising their hand, so in that case I will pass over to Marta to tell us about the farewell dinner, because that's the other thing we need to do that's not over yet.
Laura, and huge thank you for your work. just one sentence from Antonietta.
I just wanted to say a big thank you to Laura Myers, because nothing will happen without her. So and you, you are the reason that we are here. So a big applause to you. Okay.